balance what's it like for you to balance this part of it? He obviously has a father who's a very well-known basketball player, has been very successful, one of the greatest to play in college and in the pros. So how do you strike the balance with, obviously wanting him to do well, but also not wanting there to be that pressure to be like his father or be better than his father?
Yeah, that's all about communication and talking to your kid. Like, this is your journey. Your journey does not have to mimic your dad's journey. And at any point during this journey, if you're like, hey, this isn't for me, it's fine. Like, we're going to support you in whatever it is that you want to do. We want you to be great at whatever it is you put your mind to, and just make him understand. Like, Cayenne has a completely different game than Melo. There are things that are very similar, but very different. Like, you're not here to be exactly like your dad. You're here to blaze your own path, do it your way. And we constantly encourage him and give him the confidence to do that.
Being a parent of a teenager, as you know, is a lot different than when they were
Mm-hmm.
younger. And even though I've seen other interviews where you said, well, you haven't had to deal with some of the typical growing pains that
Right.
we see teenagers go through. But thinking about how you were when you were a teenager and looking at how things are so much different
Mm-hmm.
now, how have you been able to adjust to this new world that these teenagers face that
Yeah.
probably you're younger than me, that you were not familiar with when you were growing up?
Well, the thing is staying involved, staying aware. Like, I don't want to be the parent that doesn't know about what's going on. Now, there's no way for me to know about everything that's going on, but I'm fully aware of what's happening, on social media, on TikTok, on Snapchat, on everything. Like, I don't want to be the parent that's clueless about what's happening. So when Cayenne is talking to me about certain things, I already know, or he'll say, hey, mom, have you heard of this? And I'll research it. I want to be in the know with what his friends are talking about, with what his world, what being in his world, what does that look like, what does that mean, because then I can kind of guide him and offer advice. I just don't want to be that parent that's so like, oh, I don't understand this stuff, I don't know what these kids are doing. Like, I don't want to be that parent. I want to understand so I can have educated conversations with him about what his world looks like, because it is very different from when I grew up, especially the social media piece of it all, especially now playing basketball and getting so much attention from that. Like, I didn't have that growing up. And then having parents who, are known as well, that's totally different. So just helping him navigate through things that are completely different from, when I grew up.
Yeah, and social media has added like such
Yeah.
a element
A
that I couldn't
twist, a
imagine.
twist.
Yes, a twist. Yes,
Yes,
I was
a
trying to think of the
twist.
word for it. I was like,
Yes, a
a twist
twist.
would
Hmm.
be one way to put it. But yeah, and then growing up as the child of a famous parents. So
Hmm.
what advice or instruction or guidance have you been able to give him about how to navigate relationships, whether he likes it or not? He is considered a public
Yeah.
figure.
Well, to me, the main thing is, stay rooted in your faith in God. Definitely staying humble. Like, I'm all about, being walking in gratitude, being humble, being kind. And Cayenne's very quiet, laid back. He has all of those kind of traits. He's not he doesn't want to be in the front of the camera or anything like that. That's not his personality. So I lucked up there in the sense that I kind of when I kind of got to push him to be like, this comes with talking to people. You have to be able to do this. But he's very quiet and reserved, which works for who he is. He doesn't want to be just out there, and he's very kind and humble. And those are the things I tell him. You treat everyone the same. Nothing is owed to you. Nothing should just be given to you. You have to work, for it all. The other day we were at somebody's house, and this person has a full staff that like does everything. We were visiting them, and I told him, he still had to pick up his plate and put it in the sink. And he's looking at me like, Mom, these people are coming, getting their plate picked up and everything. I'm like, that's not how we live. You're going to pick your plate up and, you clean up after yourself. And he did perfectly, but he just gave me that look like, Mom, really? Like, everybody here is like, I'm like, no, you pick your plate. That's my parenting. And those are the things that matter to me. Like, you're not at a point now where someone should be, picking up after you and things like that. So you pick up your plate and do things like that. I don't know. I just, for me, it instills a different level of hard work and earning things to a degree. So I'm very much a advocate of that.
Is it difficult because the one thing, and some of my other friends who have done well for themselves go through this,
Mm,
they would love to recreate some of the hardships that they grew up with,
mm-hmm,
just so that they would have that sense of being grounded and
right.
their kids would understand what it's like to have to to have a certain work ethic to get ahead.
Right.
Um, you can't pull that off necessarily. So is that hard to try to instill those lessons that you grew up with and that same sort of work ethic, grind mentality when
Right.
you have
I
so many
can
resources?
I can kind of pull it off in certain ways. Like, you're not just going to buy whatever you want. That's in one way. He's getting to an age now where, he'll be having a learner's permit soon and wanting to drive and things like that. You're not going out and getting, some crazy car for your first car. Like, so I am able to still instill it in certain ways. And we still live in New York, which is definitely a different environment from living like, somewhere far, or a gated community, off the grid completely. Cayenne goes to school in Queens. He goes to Christ the King, which everyone knows that. So he's in the center of a lot of things. So he's able to stay humble and grounded by his environment and what I allow and what I don't allow. I think I'm a cool parent, and he would say the same thing, but he's definitely not coming in here and just getting anything he wants or overabundance of stuff. There has to be appreciation, and there has to be, you have to earn it. Like, you just don't just get it. And that's what myself and his dad, I've always instilled in him, for sure.
So between you and his dad, are you the strict parent?
100%. 1,000,000%. I don't think his dad has ever even raised his voice at Cayenne before. Like, never. Now, Mello lives up to his name. He's the most laid back, chill, and he's an incredible parent, an incredible dad. But I mean, when it comes to discipline, it's not coming from that side at all.
Well, I've heard you say in several interviews that you've
Mm-hmm.
done that it was very important to both of you that you have a certain co-parenting
Mm-hmm.
relationship, that you wanted it to be healthy, that you wanted your son to see that being healthy.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you think about um, how that relationship will look like if either of you began dating somebody seriously?
Mm-hmm. I'm always like, cross that bridge, when I get there. We are incredible friends. We created this incredible human being, and we want to be a great example to him. Our kids watch us, and then in adult life or teenage life or whatever, start mimicking the same behavior they saw at home or they saw their parents do. And it's very hard for kids to break that cycle, so to speak. You have adults now who are still heavy in therapy, just trying to break things that they saw or learned in childhood. So while we're not, the perfect family unit, so to speak, we're going to try to be as best as we can in what we're working with. And we want to be a great example to him. And to me, that's most important. Like, that's what's most important. And I don't think he would feel like he's lacking in the family, in the love department, and mom being present and dad being present and mom and dad being present together. I think we've been able to check off all of those boxes.
You said a second ago that he's at the age where he's about to maybe get the learner's permit.
Yeah,
You know,
that terrifies me.
I was gonna say, like, how
Yeah,
much, because there's one level to it in the sense that a teenager driving just
right.
automatically terrifying, right? But the other
Terrifying.
part is that you have a black son who
Hmm.
is driving.
Hmm.
So, what kind of conversations have you had about that?
Yeah, Cayenne's very, very aware of what's going on in the world. That no matter what, you're viewed as another young black man, and that's a scary thing. That comes with huge responsibility. That comes with huge awareness of your surroundings, what's happening around you. That comes with, a lot of stigmas that are attached to that. So we have those conversations. He watches, you know, TV, the news. He knows what's going on, and we're able to have, those conversations about even how to deal with the police if you get approached by a police officer, how to, handle yourself in certain situations. And while it's unfortunate that with our young black men we have to do this, it's what we have to do to protect them. So my son's no different, and we have those real heart to heart, uncensored conversations with him so he can understand exactly what that means.
Have you sensed, because the headlines, they are what they are, and especially now with social media,
Mm-hmm.
we're inundated with images of what happens in some of these interactions, or just with young black men, period. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
is there any fear that you've sensed on his part about this process of young adulthood?
Yeah, it's fear of, you know is this going to happen to me? What can happen to me? But the best way to deal with fear is by having knowledge and understanding, this is what you do in these scenarios. This is how you could potentially try to avoid these scenarios if you can. If you find yourself in these scenarios, this is the best way to deal with them. All you can do is continue to equip your child with the knowledge on what to do, and love, and continue to build them up and make sure they have confidence and high self-esteem to go into these situations and know, how to deal with it. Even still, it's not a foolproof method that, like, oh, if you do everything this way, that means nothing's going to happen to you. That's not the case. And it's really sad. So I worry about him. And I just want him, again, to be knowledgeable about what's going on out here. So he's not walking around naive or in la la land, so to speak, like, oh no, everything's great. And next thing you know, something crazy happens. Also, like I said, we live in New York. Like, we're in the heart of a lot of things. We're in New York City, and Cayenne is exposed to a lot of things. So it's very important to us to have these conversations with him.